welcome Upper Campus as your principal, newly minted in his beard for our inaugural Whisker Wednesday. I hope you are going to have a good day here. And I just want to first, before we start with the interview, just want to say that our thoughts go out to all of the people out there in our communities, in our country, in our world that are suffering through this situation. We're thinking about them. Our hearts are with them the whole time. And please send your thoughts to everyone who's out there in the world who's going through this. We're all going through this together. So let's start there. My special guest today is he's an actor, he's a philosopher, he's a philanthropist, and he's the only famous person that I actually know. Welcome, Rainn Wilson.
Woo!
Yeah.
Woo. All right.
Woo! Can't hear the people. There are hundreds of people listening right now. What's our number count right now, Mr. Bates?
223.
All right, they're coming in. Okay. So
now, can people see me? I can't see me. I only see you, Gabe. Oh, there I go. Okay.
Yeah.
Can people see me when I'm talking?
I think they can see you. Yeah, they can see you.
So there's Q&A at the bottom here. Someone says, M. Ventress asks, what's in the cage?
Don't go to the questions. Mr. Bates, block the questions right now.
Block the questions. What kind of school is this? This isn't a school of learning. This is a school of fascism.
That's seriously. We'll get to the questions. All right. So thanks for coming this morning. You know, the thing that this is my first interview ever, and it had to be with you, and it has to be in front of hundreds of people. And I know that you've been interviewed by everyone. I listened to the interview with you and Oprah and Conan, and then you even interview your own. You know, you have your own people that you interview, famous people. And then I said this morning, I said, so long as he hasn't had an interview by the greatest interviewer of all time, which is Terry Gross from Fresh Air. As long as he hasn't had that interview, then I won't feel nervous at all. So this morning, I Googled Rainn Wilson, Terry Gross, and of course, you've been interviewed by the best.
Yeah, so, she is the best, isn't she? She's amazing.
So
Fresh air.
So now I'm humbled. So now I'm nervous. So take care of me, Rainn, please. I want to jump right in, and because this is our school, 7th grade through 12th grade. First thing I want to talk about is the young 16-year-old Rainn Wilson. Let's start there. And I brought up, tell me if are these really your pictures?
Man, oh man, you did some research. Look at you. Yes, and other than the fact that it says Pinewood School there, that was me. Yeah, there's so much to say about these. So, one is, I mean, the hair, the 80s hair is definitely a big part of my, and then you could see that the one to the right, I was younger and I hadn't yet started grooming my eyebrows. And then to the left, I started plucking my unibrow.
This is the before and after. It looks like the same sweater, though.
It does look like the same sweater, isn't it? I don't think it is, but it really does. But the sweater collar look was very big for school portraits back then. But also, like in the older photo, when I had my mouth closed, because I realized like how I've had my teeth like worked on and straightened since then, but I was very self-conscious about having crooked gaps in my teeth, so then have my mouth closed in that way.
So my question is, what was the 16-year-old Rainn Wilson like? Like, what were you in clubs? Were you in sports? Were you a recluse? What was it like being the Rainn Wilson of 16?
Well, a lot happened during that time. You know, so what happened for me was, and I wrote about this in my book because it was very seminal for my growth as a human being. And that was that I was a very, very nerdy kid. and I was on the chess team and Model United Nations and pottery club and computer club, every nerdy activity you could think of, marching band. And I played the bassoon in the orchestra. And then I moved from suburban Seattle to a school outside of Chicago. And it was interesting because at the time I was listening to a lot of brand new punk rock and new wave kind of alternative rock music that was all very new at the time. And I really kind of had this idea like, you know, I don't need to be the same nerdy. I mean, I'll always be nerdy, but I don't need to be the same person I was at my school in Seattle. So I went to this new school in Chicago and I kind of like changed up my image. You know, I dressed all like torn jeans and combat boots and checkered Vans and Clash t-shirts and stuff like that. And I joined a band when I got there and I started doing acting. And so I kind of changed up my whole image. And I guess there's not really like, I mean, image is such a lame word to use. I guess there's not, I guess the lesson there is that, you know, we're never a slave to other people's perceptions of us. You know, people perceived me in Seattle as a certain way, but that wasn't who I was. You know, they perceived me as kind of brainy and nerdy, and I still was brainy and nerdy, but I was trying a lot of new things. And then when I started acting, really things transformed for me. All of a sudden, I realized I found something I was good at. I found a great community of people that, you know, liked and supported me, and I kind of found a path. So it was a very important time. That all happened in my 16th year on the planet.
That's awesome. And so then you ended up going to New York. How many years did you spend in New York?
Well, I bounced around a little bit. I went my freshman year of school at Tufts in Boston, then my sophomore year at University of Washington in Seattle, and then I went to New York City when I was 20, and I ended up being in New York City for 13 years because I knew I wanted to be an actor. I knew I wanted to study acting, and I realized I thought I was doing pretty good at acting, and so I thought I'd audition in Seattle for some roles. And so I went out to a lot of local theaters and started auditioning for roles, and I was striking out right and left. And I was realizing like, oh, I'm nowhere near, you know, I'm pretty good at University of Washington actor, you know, big fish in a small pond, but out in the real world, like I do not have what it takes, you know? And so I realized I needed to get the best training possible. So I researched all the best acting training schools, and one of them was NYU, and I was lucky enough to get in, and went to NYU, and then stayed another 10 years after that, working in the theater in New York City.
Okay. And then going to, and then I'll go to my next slide here. So I did my Rainn Wilson as the up and coming LA actor. So the question I have for you is kind of based on what you were saying, confidence versus doubt. Like how, I always hear those stories about people, years and years of trying and hundreds of rejections and things like that. What was the experience like for you, and how did you manage through rejection and keep confidence that you really had something to offer?
Well, there's a great story about that, I did theater for years and years, and that was kind of my training ground for doing film and television. I always really like the actors that train in the theater and then move on to film and TV. I got cast in my first Broadway play in around 1996. And this was about 3 years before I moved to LA. And maybe it was 97, it was right around there. And I was so excited, but I was also really nervous. And I had a lot of self-doubt and fear and anxiety and tension because of it. Because I was like, oh my God, this is so much pressure. I have a lead role in a Broadway play, you know? And I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna get discovered. I'm going to be in the New York Times. I'm going to get a big agent. I'm going to get a TV show. Like I had all of these kind of dreams that were also like these pressures that made me really self-conscious. And I did really terrible work and I sucked in the play. And I went through hell. It was really, really awful because I had to be in the play for like 3.5 months. There's nothing worse than knowing you suck and having to do 8 shows a week for 3 months, 3.5 months on Broadway. You got terrible reviews and you just have to like suck it up and stick it out. You know, that's what she said. So when I went through a lot, like I was, you know, I was crying on the phone. My wife was going to grad school at the time. I was crying on the phone to her. I didn't sleep well. I was just racked with pain. But when I got out of it, I swore, you know, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to be burdened down by all of these outside pressures and all of these difficulties. And so I fired my agents, and at the time, and I rejected being some kind of idea of a New York actor or something like that. I'm like, I need to be myself. I've got to bring myself in the roles that I'm doing, and much more than some kind of these external ideas and pressures outside of myself. And so I realized later that I never would have played Dwight had I not gone through that hell of being in that play.
Right. What was the name of this play?
It was called London Assurance. It was at the Roundabout Theater, and it was it was like post-Shakespeare restoration comedy type styled play. It was a tricky style. It was a difficult play to do for a 27-year-old actor or whatever. But so I never would have I needed to go through that hell and that failure, rejection, failure, pain, tears, angst, you know, just torture is what I felt and what I went through. And I needed to go through the fires of that in order to come out the other side to say, you know, screw it. I'm just going to really be myself and bring myself to these roles. And I'm naturally quirky and a little offbeat, and I'm going to just bring that to the roles that I do. And then that led to me, you know, when I look back on Dwight, like I never would have been cast as Dwight or had success as Dwight had I not gone through that horrible, horrible time. So for the young people, it's really important to know that sometimes your failures and difficulties can be the greatest blessings in your life. You don't know how that's going to work. You just have to go through. The only way out is through.
Okay, so let's move on there to Dwight. And I guess my question is, why do you think, you know, this is a role, a character that is so universally adored for particular reasons? Like you are going to go down as one of those people that has, what are those, the GIF, you know, like you have that, the Dwight
memes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the memes, and like this. Why Dwight? Why do you think Dwight is this character that people love so much?
Well, that's actually you know, a question I get asked a lot, and a fairly simple question, but also a very complicated, complex answer. And that is because I believe that because of my theater training and the years I spent doing theater and the years I spent studying commedia dell'arte and clowning and physical comedy and comedy in the theater, classical comedies and plays and whatnot, that Dwight is a clown in the tradition of clowns that stretches back from the early sitcoms, you know, the Honeymooners and Jackie Gleason and I Love Lucy, back to vaudeville, and back before that to touring productions of comedies, and then Shakespeare and Moliere, then commedia dell'arte, going back further and further to Greek and Roman comedies. And there were always these archetypal characters that made people laugh. you know? And Dwight is one of those. I don't know exactly what like necessarily clown Dwight would be, but you know, the self-serious clown type. You know, you could put a clown nose on Dwight, you know, and put him in big baggy pants and have him take himself really seriously and be kind of an asshole, and it would be really funny. So I see comedy on this continuum. And when you get to train as an actor, you're not just showing up to LA like, hey man, I want to be on a TV show. Like you're training in the skills of acting. Then you bring like your physicality to it, your psychology, your, you know, specific choices that you make in building and developing a character. You learn how to kind of build a character in a way that's part you, part not you. And it's part of the artistry, you know, of acting. But I really owe it to my years and years of training that it kind of paid off. Where plus, let's not forget, it's not like the Rainn Wilson show. It was like one of the greatest casts ever assembled. The writers were amazing. The stuff they wrote for me was incredible. The directors were great. The editors were great. So it took it takes a village. It took a lot of people to create the milieu that the character of Dwight could
Occupy that
lift off.
Mm-hmm. And then I want to move to, so the person that I got to know is the person before the office, and I got to know you as when your wife was pregnant and had Walter and that whole time. And one of the things I want to just touch on, because I think in order to understand the things that you value, it's important to talk about your faith a little bit, because I got to know you because we were both living in Van Nuys, Venusians, and you are Baha'i, and I married, my wife's a Baha'i, and we hosted these study classes. And I think it's, in order to understand all the things, the last couple of things I want to talk about, like Soul Pancake and Lide, it's important that you understand the basis for where your worldview comes from. So will you just explain really briefly what the Baha'i faith is and what that adds for you?
Sure. So again, there's a much, much longer story here. And if anyone is interested, I cover it in my book called The Bassoon King. Do I have a copy up here? Sorry. It's a little plug for my book. I go much more in depth in the book, but for me, my spiritual journey is a hugely important part of my life. So I grew up a member of the Baha'i faith, and Baha'is believe that there's only one God and that all religions come from this God. All religions are basically the same and all beautiful and all true, and Baha'is work in service to humanity. So I had left the Baha'i faith for a long time when I was in New York, kind of making my way as an actor, and then came back and realized that in the Baha'i faith, the arts and service to humanity are greatly wedded. In other words, the role that the artist plays is a servant to making people's lives better. And I realized that because we live our lives in a lot of compartments, you know, like, oh, here's my church life is here, and my family life is here, and my friends are here, and my school is here, and my loves are here, and my hobbies are here. And we act different in each one of these compartments. And I wanted to be integrated. I want to have an integrity where whether I'm at my faith group or I'm at school or I'm at work, I'm with my family, I'm with my friends, like I'm the same person. And I believe that I'm a spiritual being. I'm a soul serving humanity by making people laugh and providing entertainment and telling stories. And this is very much underlined and highlighted in the Baha'i teachings. So my life as Dwight, as weird as it seems, like, oh, he's a member of this weird sounding religion, and then he played this like nerdy, dorky, dweeby jerk on TV, like how do those correspond? But I see it as like, now you see people like, they talk about how anxiety ridden they are and how watching The Office really soothes them. And So many people are just watching it over and over again, and it's like another family that they've joined, and they just love being a part of it. And so I really feel grateful that I was a part of such an amazing show that has brought solace to a lot of people, and that is a spiritual act.
Yeah. And then I think when you do that, then when we go, oh, I just want to make a plug here. People don't know, Rainn has always been really generous with his time to me. I don't know if you remember this. This was the you remember the Coachella? You hosted a thing for my first school, and it
Yeah.
was back at the picture and playing the drums there. And then you'd eventually do the rocker. And I just wanted to give you, the shout out. This was 10 years ago, and I've always appreciated the time that you've given us. But moving forward, I wanted to say, I think the context of that, I think, makes sense why you would do something like Soul Pancake. So I think people have seen some of the videos like Kid President or things like that, but tell us a little bit more about Soul Pancake.
Yeah, so as part of my journey, I, along with some friends, created a website, and now it's turned into kind of a social media and digital media company. It has a YouTube channel, Facebook page. We have, 4 million YouTube subscribers and 2 million Facebook subscribers. And we do uplifting, inspiring content about being a human being. Our tagline is, we make stuff that matters. So this was our best-selling book that we came out with as we were launching the channel. And then we and then we launched a number of shows like Kid President, like you mentioned, My Last Days, like there's been a ton of viral hit shows, but we were really on the forefront of trying to do media for good, uplifting media to try and make the world a better place. That's accessible, that's fun, that can inspire you and bring joy and love and light, and that we knew that there would be an audience out there for that. So that's why we created Soul Pancake.
Yeah, and I have to say that I've used those videos as a teacher, as a principal. They are always a good go-to in terms of helping, and they're well produced. That's the other thing. They're not just good content; they're well produced, and they hit the spot right where there's receptivity to it. So I just have to give a shout out to that. I'm going to move to our last topic before we take questions from the students. Lide, one of the things that has really inspired me is that you give yourself in a lot of different ways. And I've heard the story several times about how you got involved with Haiti, but I guess maybe just say, like, how is that? It's been several years now. How has that grown? How is it? How's it affected you? Or maybe describe what the work is, and then how has it affected you?
Yeah, so my wife and I were doing some work in Haiti right before the earthquake 10 years ago, and we realized we needed to do more. So we started, along with a friend of ours, LIDE, which is Arts and Literacy Education for Adolescent Girls. So some of the poorest girls in Haiti, which is one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere, and it's also one of the poorest countries in the world. So the poverty is just preposterous. You can see in this photo, a lot of the girls are barefoot. Simply, they don't own shoes. They've never owned shoes. So we work in really rural, remote parts of Haiti, building resilience and empowerment. And I guess how's it affected me? It's just underlined for me, first of all, the importance of education and what you do, Gabriel, Mr. Lemon, Dr. Lemon, whatever people call you, Lemonhead, that education is where it's all at. It's where everything starts. Any issue you have in the world, climate change, social justice, immigration, healthcare, whatever your biggest issue that you care about, it's got to start with education. You've got to educate people, you've got to educate young people, and bring them up and empower them to make change. And that's what education can do, is it can empower people to make change. And that's what we're trying to do with these girls in Haiti.
And I guess the last question, just thinking about the pandemic and what are your thoughts about, like, where do we go from here? Because you are a deep thinker. Where does humanity go from here? How do we take this? What do we do with this?
Yeah, so great question. Certainly, this pandemic has brought on a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety. Certainly, there's a lot of job insecurity and fears around that. We have to really think first about the people on the front lines, the healthcare workers, you know, the grocery store workers, anyone that's kind of, even the Amazon package delivery or guys, you know. So there's a lot of fear. And at the same time, I think we're also getting a sense of like, oh, this isn't about America. This isn't about China. This isn't about Italy. This is a global human crisis. And the more that we can see ourselves as one species inhabiting one planet, working together to try and make the world a better place, to come together in love and in unity, that's where we need to be headed. And if something positive can come out of this pandemic, and there will be a lot of lives lost, and there will be a huge economic loss, and I don't want to neglect those, but if there's a positive that can come out, it can be like, we can all work together, we can solve problems, we can come together, we can unite and share and help each other. And those stories are really beautiful. So anything that leads to the rapid planetization of humankind is really important. And, you know, climate change is the next big pandemic. And that is, you know, going to have terribly deleterious effects for centuries to come. And the action needs to, it will be bad, but it doesn't have to be cataclysmic. If we act now, and if you, 256 participants, educate people, take part in this, learn about how climate change works, learn the science of climate change and what actions need to be taken to get ourselves off of fossil fuels and coal, and reduce our CO2 footprint, and you know, reharmonize with nature. You know, the Pope just came out and said this pandemic is really the planet Earth warning us, and it has to do with climate change. And the reason it has to do with climate change is we're not in harmony with nature. We keep growing and expanding and cutting down forests, getting in closer and closer proximity to animals. We don't have that natural forest barrier between humans and animals, and it makes diseases easier to cross over to humans because we're just eliminating all these natural habitats. And that this is part of the consequence of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that, Rainn. So I've arranged that we have one representative from every grade level is going to ask one question, and that's how we're going to do the latter half of this. So we're going to do one question from starting with Sasha, I believe, in the 7th grade.
Okay, I'm pulling in Sasha now.
Go ahead, Sasha.
You relate to the
Sasha.
character Dwight.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead. Do it again.
Do you relate to the character Dwight in any way? If so, how?
Wonderful question, Sasha, and the 7th graders. Thank you so much. I guess that, you know, when I'm at my worst, I can be more like Dwight. When I'm at my worst, parts of myself are severe and controlling and kind of constantly thinking about hierarchies. So I think we all have a little bit of an inner Dwight, but it's not part of myself that I especially like so much. Thank you, Sasha.
Very good.
All right, thank you, Sasha.
Cole has our next question.
Okay, pulling in Cole now.
Hello, Mr. Wilson. My class was wondering if you had any regrets in regards to your career choice, and if you had any regrets in choosing certain roles.
Oh, wow. That's a good probing question, Cole. Thank you so much. Who's that guy behind you?
Your background, Cole.
Oh, yeah. It's just how do I?
Is that your dad? Is that your dad, or is that a famous psycho killer? I couldn't tell.
No, I was trying to find some person on the internet. Like in writing class, we were trying to see if a person who worked at NASA was actually worked there for this website thing, and I found a photo of that guy.
Gotcha.
And it's pretty funny.
That is pretty funny. So, have there roles that I've regretted? Not really. Yeah, there's stuff. I remember there was some sketches that I did a sketch with Megan Fox where I had a teddy bear on my crotch, and it was just very goofy sketch on the MTV Movie Awards or something like that. And I was really after I was like, why did I do that? That was really stupid. But actual roles, when I think back of the roles that I've done, I think there's a couple of smaller roles that I did kind of for friends that I kind of wish I hadn't done. I was trying to help out a friend, which is a good impulse, but it just kind of hurt my career in certain ways to do a lot of kind of small roles and little projects that no one's ever going to see. So I hate to say it, but those would be some.
Okay, cool.
But thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cole. Okay, now we're pulling in Devin from the 9th grade. Or not.
Hey, Rainn, do you ever come up to Bosch?
I used to come up a lot. I haven't been up very much, but you guys are up by Bosch, right?
We're like 20 minutes away. So if you ever go to Bosch, please stop by.
Yeah. Have you guys been much?
No, we haven't much. We're just getting settled in, but yeah, we'll get connected.
How long have you been there?
Just a year.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
All right, we have
Beautiful place.
All right. So my question is pretty much coming into your acting career, were you looking for more of a silly comedic role like Dwight, or did you want to have a serious role in more of a dramatic play?
Thanks, Devin. Great question. So when you train in the theater, you're not a comic actor or a serious actor. You do it all. You do a musical one day, you do Shakespeare the next day, you do a contemporary drama, you do a new play that's a comedy. And so I was really trained for all of it. But when I came to LA, I realized that, probably if I'm going to have success, I'm going to take off in the comedy world.
Yeah.
I'm having the most kind of success there. So I knew that by doing comedy, a lot of other doors would be open to me. And that's what happened. I played Dwight, and I've been able to play a lot of really cool, different roles in movies like Super and Hesher and The Meg, and large movies, small movies, independent films, stuff like that, where I play different kinds of characters. There's a new show coming out on Amazon called Utopia that'll be out in a few months. That's more of a serious role. So, yeah. So, but thanks for great question.
Thanks, Devin. All right, 10th grade.
10th grade, pulling Andreas in right now.
Hi, my name's Andreas. I'm a big fan. Question, as a philanthropist, what has been your most rewarding and joyful experience of giving?
Fact. The most important part of, I think, you know, when I started working for an organization called the Mona Foundation, we were raising money to build classrooms, and they were $10,000 a pop. And we raised some money to build 3 classrooms, and there were literally photos of empty land when we started. And it's like, oh, here's where we're going to build the classrooms. And then we raised the money, and we went back a year later, and there were 3 classrooms filled with kids. So that's what I would say for anyone that's getting involved in nonprofit work. There's a lot of huge nonprofits out there that it's kind of hard to see the action, the payoff. But it was so satisfying to be raising money and literally building classrooms that were filled with students who were learning. And they wouldn't have had a chance to learn if we hadn't raised that money and built those classrooms. Thanks, Andreas.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Andreas.
Now 12th grade.
11th grade.
Sorry, 11th grade. Sorry, 11th grade.
Tara now.
Oh, and Rainn, just to reaffirm, like the bobbleheads, you don't get a cut of any of that, do you?
I get a tiny, tiny, tiny cut of merchandising, and it's preposterously low. I think since over the entire course of the office, maybe I've made $5,000 or $6,000 off of bobbleheads, calendars, Hallmark cards, T-shirts, sold by the hundreds of thousands or millions. So it's really pathetic.
Yeah. All right, Tara.
Hi, Tara.
Hi. What do you miss most from being on The Office, and why?
What I miss most is the kind of the family atmosphere that we had on the set. It was such a nice, good group of people, and we're so connected and loving and fun. And I miss just showing up and having like I'd leave my family and go in and have a second family. So I miss that a lot.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara.
I have a question for you related to that, Rainn. I was watching this thing with Courtney Cox about her doing trivia about Friends, and she like couldn't name anything. She was doing horribly. And then I saw you with Billie Eilish, and you were asking her trivia questions. How well would you do in an office trivia?
I do terrible. I've watched all the episodes as they came out, and I've maybe rewatched 12 or 15 of the best ones. But other than that, like there's so many episodes I haven't seen in 5 or 8 or 9 years. So I just like, and people these days have watched The Office, you know, Billie Eilish has watched The Office 13 times.
Yeah, it's crazy how, like I would just imagine that in the moment of doing those, that the experience of what you're doing is different than thinking about the plot of the particular episode that you're doing at the time. Yeah. All right, let's go to Carter.
All right, Carter is a senior.
Hi. My question is, what is your favorite memory from high school?
Nice. Love the background, Carter. You're not the first I've
Thanks.
seen, though. Sorry, buddy.
I know.
It's great. It's great. What's the question again?
What was your favorite memory from high school?
My favorite memory from high school, I guess it really had to do with acting. I was doing a play called Pygmalion, which was the source play for My Fair Lady, the musical, for those who know. And I was playing this character, Alfred Doolittle. And when I was doing the play on the stage, in the middle of the play, I was in character, I saw this candy bowl with all these candies in it. And my character was kind of a shifty guy. And like when no one was looking, I picked up the bowl and I poured all the candies into my pocket and put the bowl back on the table. And it got this huge laugh. And we hadn't rehearsed it. We hadn't planned it. I just kind of improvised it in the moment. and I was like, oh, that's what acting is. That's what you do. You're living and breathing in as the character, and then moments are just going to come spontaneously up. So that was a really positive learning experience. Thanks, Carter Brady. You have two first names.
Thanks.
Okay,
Hey,
who's
Carter,
next?
before you leave, I want you to position yourself better so we could take a screenshot. So turn your body the other way and look past.
This. Okay.
Look like you're being interviewed like it would be in the office. Okay.
Like this?
Out of that. Yeah, that's better. I guess.
Down a little.
Down. Yeah. Yeah. Well, good enough. There you go.
There you go.
Thanks.
All right.
We're coming to the end of our time here. One of the things I have to let you know that I was pressuring the president of the school to I figured if I did it live, can we make a donation to Lide? And of course, because I brought it in live, he said yes. So we'll be making a donation to
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's very generous. Appreciate it.
And one of the things that just like the last thing, I just want to thank. Well, one of the things that I have to say about you, before you were famous, and I don't even know if you remember this, but before you were famous, when I would ask you to come help out at the school, I don't even know if you remember doing this, you came and did acting games with my students when you weren't famous. And the fact that you've continued to, not just my school or whatever, but you continue to go out in the world and leverage this gift that you've been given to make the world a better place. I just have to say, thank you so much.
Oh, that's very sweet, Gabe, and I appreciate that, and I do think that that's something that all of us can do. I know you and Tanya are so generous with your time and so giving as well, and for all of the 263 students watching, you know, for decades in American cultural life, the whole kind of philosophy has been, hey, as long as I'm not hurting anybody else, if I'm living a happy and comfortable life with my family, then that's fine. That's what it's all about. But we're kind of past that point as a species on this planet. You know, there's a billion people in poverty, and there's a lot of pain out there, and there's a lot of big injustice and things that need to be addressed. So we can't just sit back and live a nice, comfortable life with our family and not hurt anybody and have that be enough. We have to go to the next step individually, societally, nationally, internationally, globally. We have to have a nice life, be comfortable, that's great, be with your family, and exert what, 10, 20% of your effort, 30% of your effort in making the world a better place. And we can all do that. You don't have to be some TV celebrity to do that. You can be a student, you can be a housewife, you can be working, you can be a janitor. It doesn't matter. We can all give back and help one another. So thanks. Thanks, Pinewood School. And what's your mascot?
We're the Panthers.
Lame.
And I'll say goodbye by this. All the times that you ever helped, I don't know why you did it, but you would always come over and kiss me on the lips. Do you remember that? Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Everybody, thank in your own homes and thank Rainn Wilson, and nice to see you, Rainn, and have a wonderful life. Say hi.
Bye, guys. Thank you for having me, Gabe. Much love to you all. So long.
All right, bye-bye. And there you have it, Rainn Wilson. Thank you, all of you at WISCR Wednesday. We'll be back next week with Dr. Kim Farley, who is an expert in pandemics and a professor at UCLA and another friend of mine, who will be talking to us about the latest pandemic and his thoughts about it. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Make sure that you check your emails because those are the invites. for all of your activities. That you'll be getting email invites for the Zoom codes. So have a wonderful week, WISCR Wednesday, and we'll see you next week.